Is Indiana that good? Is Ohio State not so great? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Buckeyes win over the Hoosiers at the Shoe, 42-35. Ohio State takes command of the Big Ten Eastern Division with a win over Indiana, but they led 35-7 in this one. Let's break down the Buckeyes side. 4 key areas, 3 negatives, 1 big positive for Ohio State. We've got to start with the secondary. Michael Penix threw for 491 yards. That is the most against an Ohio State defense going back to 1981, and I remember that Ohio State effort on defense or lack thereof. The Ohio State secondary coming into this season, we expected to have issues in regards to depth, but not in regards to frontline talent. They did lose 3 starters out of the 4 last year, and 2 of them high selections in the NFL draft. Shaun Wade came back, which we felt was going to be a saving grace for this defense, and probably is, despite Shaun Wade not meeting expectations and having a subpar campaign this year. Amir Reep, a top backup, of course, was dismissed from the team. So the secondary came into the season as a concern, but not so much from a talent perspective as a depth situation. But it's been both in this shortened 2020 season. They did play decent in the first half. So look play to play in the first half and understand that Indiana brings the second or third best wide receiver core in the Big Ten to the field. So keep that in mind. They're going to make plays. They throw it well. Michael Penix has a strong arm, has developed into a fine quarterback, hit on 27 of 51 for 491 yards. That's the most given up by an Ohio State defense through the air since 1981. And I remember that season, remember those days, and that team still tied for the Big Ten championship. The coverage was decent. At least they were in the vicinity. They didn't break down. They didn't blow plays. They gave up some pass plays, but nothing large, not concerning in the first 8 drives of the game. In the first half, Ohio State stopped Indiana on 7 of 8 drives. They gave up the 1 touchdown on a long play. Otherwise, they got 7 stops, 1 of those on downs, the others a fumble, and all punts. And again, facing one of the best wide receiver cores in the Big Ten. But in the second half, they simply got torched. They reverted back to what we saw against Rutgers and Penn State, most notably. Either there was strictly a blown coverage, or the individual defensive back got burned, or he was in position and played the receiver well, but didn't play the ball well, didn't break it up, didn't do what was needed to cause an incompletion. Marcus Hooker, in one particular play in which Freifogel burned him for a touchdown, he is the last man. He's the last bastion of defense in the back line. He jumped a route that didn't exist. If you looked at the full-scale, wide view of the play, there were 2 Ohio State defenders in front of Hooker in that zone, and there was no wide receiver, no receiver at all. And Hooker still jumped just because the quarterback was rolling in his direction and coming up toward the line. He bit. They give up the bomb to Freifogel behind him. So Marcus Hooker with a poor individual play in that. Don't want to highlight just one individual bad play because there were many. Shaun Wade, despite 1 big pick 6 that might have saved this game, that gave Ohio State a cushion late third quarter, he did not play well for the most part again. Ohio State gave up, again, 491 yards through the air, pass plays of 63, 33, 25, 56, and 68 yards. So that concern stays. Shaun Wade against Ty Freifogel was 80-20 Indiana's side. They won 80% of those plays involving those 2. Shaun Wade did make some plays aside from the pick 6, but Ohio State not enough plays. In 2020 college football, the throwers and the catchers and the elite speed and the spacing of the plays, the spacing of the formations is too much for any defense to contain. Look at Florida, look at Alabama, look at Clemson, look at some of the other top teams in the nation. They're giving up yards and plays, but this is still too much. It's alarming. It needs to be tightened up for Ohio State to win a national championship. All right, point number 2 is that Justin Fields had his worst day as an Ohio State or Georgia quarterback. Still, that's by Justin Fields' standards. So it was not a horrible day. by the standards of most top 25 quarterbacks. It was a bad Justin Fields day. It was the worst he's had. It's not even really debatable. 18 of 30 for 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 picks. He didn't throw the ball that poorly. It wasn't that he threw the ball or was off target much. He wasn't quite as razor sharp as he's been through the first 3 games and much of last season. But it was more about the decision making. He had a throw in the first quarter in which he threw the ball late downfield. It was late in the route. It was late in the play. Therefore, it was picked off by the safety. Jamar Johnson picked it off easily. His other interception out of 3, he was about to be sacked, and they were leading by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and he just whipped the ball up for no reason. He saw Julian Fleming, thought he could throw the ball downfield, but Julian Fleming was still 15, 18 yards away, and there was plenty of time, and it was just a poor decision. He didn't know necessarily he was going to get hit at the same exact time and have his arm pulled so he couldn't get any velocity on the football, but still just not understanding game situation and score situation and still trying to make plays up 2 and 3 scores. You see quarterbacks press when they're down by multiple scores, or they're frustrated because they're not moving the ball and it's a 10-7 game in the third quarter. But the Buckeyes still racked up 607 yards of total offense in this game. But Justin Fields just made bad decisions, and he said as much after the game. He said, I didn't play well. I made poor decisions. Credit the running game for bailing us out on offense. We'll get to that in just a second, because the third down component in this football game for Ohio State against Indiana was pass protection. So it wasn't just Justin Fields. He was running around for his life most of the time. The offensive line protection was not good in this game most of the time. Got to put a caveat on that. 30 times Justin Fields threw the ball. He probably dropped back another 8 to 10 to 12 times because he ran it 15 times for 78 yards. So he dropped back more than 40 times. Indiana's a strong pass rushing team. They had led the Big Ten in takeaways entering the game. That's not going to change because they took it away 3 times. But the pass protection by the Buckeyes was not good. Individually, they got whipped at times, but it was more so assignments were blown. They were sliding in the wrong direction. They were picking up the wrong people. They were not following the fundamentals of working inside out. And again, they got whipped a few times. Master Teague, in particular, on a key play in the second half, was just blown by and through. Master Teague's a big, strong dude that's built low to the ground, and Jamar Johnson went right through him for a sack. So that was troubling. Ohio State's pass protection, not good. But for what the Ohio State offensive line lacked in pass protection, they certainly made up for in run blocking. The run game has been a concern for Ohio State this year, but it was no concern in this one. Master Teague looked strong. He was running north and south. If there's anything that you might say about this guy, is that while he doesn't give you wiggle, he doesn't stop on a dime and cut the other way, he goes for positive yardage. He makes up his mind and shoots the gap, finds the crease, finds the hole, finds the cutback lane, and goes with it. Typically, it's not a cutback lane because he doesn't go for the big yardage going across the field. But Master Teague ran for 6.5 yards per carry, and Trey Sermon on 9 carries at 6.7 yards per carry against a good run defense. Not a great one. Indiana ranked 36th in the nation, coming in at 210 yards per game given up on the ground. Penn State ripped them up for 250. Most of that was Sean Clifford at 119. But an effective run game by Ohio State with 307 yards rushing. They moved it. Even when they didn't get a significant hole or a specific hole blown open for the back, they pushed Indiana down the field. You saw a number of times that a Master Teague would press into the line, and even though he didn't have a hole or a crease, they were still getting the move, the push up front, and he would just chug it along and lean for 6 or 7 yards. That happened a number of times. So impressive run game for Ohio State. That's encouraging to balance out the offense. The offensive line in the running game doing its job. against a decent Indiana front. Buckeyes win at 42-35. They go to Illinois to take on a rejuvenated Illinois team after defeating Nebraska today, a week after defeating Rutgers. Illinois now 2-3. Indiana out of the Big Ten race, most notably, but still could have a strong season, should maintain a high-ranking position. They take on Maryland. Your thoughts on the Big Ten? Ohio State, Indiana. Right here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football. Please like, comment, share the videos out on social media. There's folks that don't know that we're here each and every day talking college football. That is your role. You need to let them know. Share the videos on social media. And, of course, subscribe. Hit that bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live right here at the voice of college football.